Good morning. Welcome to the September 24th, 2019 meeting of the Saline County Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Shadwick?
Here.
Commissioner Sparks?
Here.
Commissioner Vidrickson?
Here.
Commissioner Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner White?
And I ask you to please stand and join me in a flag salute followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We now move to our public forum of our portion of our meeting where the citizens may speak on county government, usually limited to 3 minutes and pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. Does anyone wish to address the commission?
Hello, my name is Dennis Benoit. I live in Geneseo, but I consider Salina my hometown, and so that's why I'm here to give the people out there a little new information. This is about concerns for vaccines, and it's sort of breaking. I haven't seen this in the last years, but it's just broken the last couple of months. A lot of talk, so I'm passing it on to you. It's called the mother mutation. That mother is spelled MTHFR. It's a well-known mutation that 98% of children with autism and adults have this mutation, and they've estimated the general American public has 40 to 50% of the people have this mutation. So it's something that they've been studying. I can only track it back maybe 3 years, but this could be a possible key. It's easier to just explain to you that you don't need the long names and complicated, because it does get complicated. There's all sorts of mutations, but it's sort of like a suppression of your normal immune system given to you by your creator. Something is depressing it. So let's say your gas tank is always reading low or empty, and in this case it's like little people in your system that's supposed to show up and take this aluminum to the liver. They don't show up. So what are you going to do with this aluminum? Well, you're going to hang on to it. And this is what is in many of the vaccines that are made today. So you'll probably have some, just enough to get you to know what is it? Well, it's just something pressing down on your naturally given immune system. But there are tests. But I don't think they're made it this far. There's all sorts of tests. There's all sorts of mutations that you need to be aware of. So before you take your child in for a vaccine, question yourself, is this an immunity that your child has? Is it a mutation your child has? Or do you have it? So, thank you, and keep up. Don't use your cell phone while you're driving. I see people all the time occupied, and you're going to eventually run into somebody else. That's not the way to make friends. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Norman, man, I'll have to take it back, Robert. I do have something to say. It concerns economic development expansion out in the county. We need to look whether we really need this or not. I'm concerned about these wind towers or any other future expansion in the county. We need to look what problems does it cause? Right now, there are 725,000 tons of these wind tower blades out there, and we don't know what to do with them. So don't let them bring them to your landfill.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for regular business. Item number 1.
Approve agenda for public forum as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda for the public forum as presented.
I second the motion.
Been moved and seconded that we approve today's agenda for the public forum. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Item number 2.
Approval of county commission minutes for September 10th, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the county commission minutes of September 10th, 2019 as presented.
Second the motion.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the county commission minutes of September 10th, 2019 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Item number 3.
Approval of county commission minutes for September 17th, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the county commission minutes of September 17th, 2019 as presented.
I second the motion.
That's been moved and seconded that we accept the county commission minutes of September 17th, 2019 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion does carry. Moving right along to item number 4.
RFA 175-19, fiscal year 19, Kansas Department of Corrections year-end outcome report with Annie Grievous, Community Corrections Director.
Good morning, Annie.
Morning. Ending up fiscal year 2019, it's an outcome report. In our grants, we highlight lots and lots of data that we track, and then they want us to focus on certain areas. We get to pick them, but sometimes I get negative about it. Sometimes I'm not very negative about it, because I always think we're looking at the wrong thing sometimes. But this last year, we focused on, for the KDOC report, 3 critical areas that we were interested in. So we've been submitting them quarterly reports and tracking this data, and the year-end report requires commission signature before we sign it off or send it off to DOC. So it's a simple deal. This year we focused for KDOC on dispositional departures. Those are cases that on the sentencing grid are they're designed to go to prison. They have a high risk. They have a lengthy history, and because of the current crime that they've just committed, the grid puts them in prison. But the judge or the county attorney can recommend that cases go up or down different places on the grid. So what they're called is dispositional departures, and we get a lot of those. A lot of cases like that come to us, and we don't have a problem supervising them at all. We're happy to take them. To me, a client is a client. We are going to offer everything we do. What happens, unfortunately, is that those clients are not as successful, and we know that. Over the years, we've seen the increase of the dispositional departures coming our way, and so we started tracking that to see. And for the fiscal year 2019, we had 77 cases revoked and sent to prison, and 41% of those were dispositional departures. So close to 50% of what we send were dispositional departures. It's alarming to me a little bit, except for the same fact that we're going to supervise them, we're going to give them everything, but what happens is the court system sends them to us, and there's people within the court system that think because they are a dispositional departure, community corrections should give them everything that we give everybody else. That's not how we play the game. A dispositional departure is going to get the same thing as a first-time felon's going to get. They're going to offer all the services, we're going to offer all the treatment, we're going to do everything we can as long as they're not a risk to the community and are working a process. And so that's where we run into the problem. But as you can see, 41% of our 77 revocations did go to prison. And every time the court sends a client to prison on community corrections, we get dinged funding-wise. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's unfortunate. I just wanted you to be aware that this is not a change. We're seeing more of them, and it wouldn't be surprising to me, and we'll continue to track this, that if that number isn't higher. We carry about 420 clients, adult clients, on a regular active basis. So when I think about 77 revoked, To me, that's not alarming, but I'll go over the next outcome, and it
Let me
is
stop you just a
alarming.
second.
Yes.
How do you have any comparison numbers to how that ranks statewide with other community corrections?
I can get that, yes, I can.
That'd be interesting to see that.
Dispositional departures tend to be higher in our larger agencies like myself, like
Sure.
ourselves, and lower in those smaller counties, but I can, yeah, sure, I can get that for you.
Percentage-wise is what I was, not
Sure.
necessarily the
No,
total
the number, but the
percentage.
percentages, I can find that for you.
And
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll get that.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
So that's one thing, and I would say that I've seen the report like that, and we are in that top 5 category of the highest numbers of departures, so. But I'll get an update one for you. So the next one is our required outcome that you have to, the DOC and the legislators put out there years ago, they'd like to see a 75% success rate. Well, we carry about 420 active clients. We revoked 77, and we ended the year at 67.2% success rate. We have not hit 75% success rate for many years. I don't even know what that is. And when you go across other states, which I got an opportunity, I was in D.C. for a week for training just last week, they're just still amazed that Kansas is still attaching funding to your success rate, because you all know what we do. You know all the opportunities we give clients and everything we're willing to do, but you cannot change behavior that doesn't want to be changed. We all know that. And so 67 to about 70% is where we've fallen out the last several years. I would say that that is probably where we're going to see that for a while, because dispositional departures are going to continue to come and our caseload's going to continue to increase. It's not going to change. And so every time you don't meet your success rate, 75%, they also can ding you on the funding. So we're kind of in that funny situation. The good thing is that I write lots and lots of grants to supplement what the Department of Corrections does not give us, and we'll continue to do that and continue to fund the agency and the services we do. But it'll always be a struggle, I think, for our area. And it is a struggle in some of the larger areas. Wichita struggles, Wyandotte County doesn't, but Kansas City does. There's other areas that also, the larger areas, it's tougher. And I talk about the modifications we've done and still haven't met that outcome. The last outcome is just our tracking our cognitive behavior initiatives, the number of people that are assigned to cognitive classes, the number that successfully complete within that year's time, and the ones that are unsuccessful. If they don't successfully complete, they're just reassigned and put back into a different cog class. We offer about 7 right now, so there's other things we can try with them. They're not taken to court or have any kind of violation. That's an opportunity for them. So this is the report that needs to be to DOC by October 1st, and I just need commission approval to forward it on.
Are there questions or comments from commissioners to Mr. Grievous? I will, as an RFA is in place here, I will ask if there's any public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve by signature the FY19 Community Corrections Year-End Outcome Report.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve by signature the FY19 Community Corrections Year-End Report, RFA 175-19. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. We will move forward to item number 5.
PreTrial stats update with Andrew Pellant, PreTrial Program Coordinator, and Annie Grievous, Community Corrections Director.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. All right, so on the update on the pretrial services program, there were 44 placements on pretrial services in the month of August. I think you take a look at the graph. Underneath the first graph, it says July. That should say August. So that was a mistake on the graph. As of August 31st, 85 clients are actively being supervised, 35 are in custody, 48 have had their charges dismissed or have been sentenced on pretrial or sentenced on their cases, and 34 have had their pretrial bond revoked. Of the 34 who have had their pretrial bond revoked, 3 were because of new alleged charges, and 31 were due to failure to appear in court. The 202 defendants placed on pretrial supervision through August 31st have impacted the Saline County Jail by 7,373 days. August has accounted for 5,198 of those days. So far in September, 17 defendants have been placed on pretrial supervision, 6 defendants have been sentenced on their charges dismissed, and 8 defendants have had their pretrial bonds revoked. Our agency, in the number 6 on my talking points, I have that on there every month. It's just the community resources that Community Corrections offers. I won't read through the whole thing again. I will give an example of one we used recently. We had a client who was homeless and didn't have a resident situation. He had underlying issues with substance abuse. He came into the office. I was able to call Todd White at the Serenity House, which is the transitional sober living house. Got him approved to get into the house that day, and I submitted a request for services and for Community Corrections to pay the first 2 weeks to get him on his feet. He was starting the job, so a lot of our clients kind of need that first 2 weeks to get on their feet in those situations. So it is one that we did within the last week. We utilize evidence-based practices, including motivational interviewing. I just recently returned from a national conference, a pretrial conference recently, and talked to a lot of different agencies across the United States and learned some things, some ideas that I would like to move forward. I have a meeting with Director Grievous next week, and we're going to go over some of the things that I learned in the conference. Now, I went over a lot of things with agencies, and they were impressed of how far we are 5 months into the thing. I showed them our grid guideline and what we use for our pretrial risk assessment, and some of the ones who spoke at the conference said that we're light years ahead of some agencies who start the pretrial services program. I don't have a new update on the IT system that we're working on with regards to text-to-talk or talk-to-text to get clients' court dates. We talked about one of the best practices of pretrial is just as simple as reminding them of their court dates, and that increases their likelihood to be in court. So that is something we're still working on, and I learned at the conference that's still a foundation of pretrial is making sure they're aware of court, and if there's any barriers for transportation, we try to address it at that time. The last thing I included this week was copies of the pretrial release and detention guidelines and the pretrial risk assessment that we utilize in our program, and these were both created by district court judges. I did this just to kind of present a visual. I know we talk about the number that we have in custody and why they're still in custody, and I know in previous weeks we talked about if they ever were to come out of custody, we have every service that we're going to offer them that we do anybody else. But I included the pretrial risk assessment that gives an idea of the points that we score against people. We look at if they have a local residence, their employment, history of drug use, was a weapon present, was it used, what's your prior convictions look like, are you on supervision? So that all gives a score in the end, and then based on their alleged charges, that fits onto the release and detention guidelines. So that's the matrix that we use. You see, for instance, someone who's being charged with a level 5 drug felony falls in that middle box. And depending on where they score, if they score anywhere from 14 to 21, if you look over at the blue, that's a cash surety, $2,500. So the PR on this is our own recognizance, which means they can sign their own bond and get out. And so I just wanted to kind of put a visual to some of the scores that these defendants may get. And so if you see the red that says cash surety, well, the red on the right column says cash surety set by the judge. So sometimes if they fit these, it could either be based on charges and a combination of their score or just domestic violence charges, some of the more severe or serious level person felonies. The judge will set high bond amounts because of the safety to the community, and the judge's reasoning on that is he's going to set the high amount anyway just to protect the community, but if this person somehow is able to make bond, the judges feel, more confident if they're on supervision. If they are able to make a high bond, they come out, they're going to be on supervision so we can monitor, make sure they make it to court, they get the services they need, and that if there are any victims on cases, we can monitor their activity, and we have one that we have a GPS monitor on, and we set what's called exclusion zones. If there's a victim of a case, we set that perimeter around the victim's house or the grade school, and we get notified immediately if he crosses that exclusion zone, and he's aware of that exclusion zone, so then we can act on public safety immediately. And so that's why I included the guidelines and the risk assessment, just to kind of give that visual to that.
First, Andrew, let me say that your report here is very well done. Thank you for getting this in front of us. It really clarifies it for us rather than hearing numbers. This is a good report and well done. I appreciate that. Second, I want to comment that it continues to amaze me that we have about 40% of these people who have this second chance, and all they have to do is show up for their assigned court date, and they choose not to do that. And, that falls out of our hands when it comes to jail time and days spent in the jail. It just leaves me shaking my head, so.
Yep.
Are there any other comments from commissioners?
Well, to follow up on your point, it doesn't have anything to do with us in a way. I mean, what can we do to help you get this talk-to-text going? I mean, everybody in town uses it. Every doctor in town, every massage therapist, every bar, everybody uses it. So how do we get, I use it.
I know, I like the way you threw the massage therapist in there. We need to, we're working with an IT specialist, and you're right, we could just get an app on our phones and run with it. But we need it to be secure, and we need to make sure that we're not just throwing some app on everybody's phone and expecting it to work. So you really can't help us moving along. I can move it along a little bit more and tell them that we're ready to put that process in. I was waiting because we have a lot of, several things we're looking to for IT, that collaboration and increasing links through IT networks to other agencies in our community. But I understand what you're saying. I agree. I think that might be something we need to do when we have a juvenile agency, that our juvenile staff would like to do it too. So I'm actually meeting with him on Monday. So let me get that rolling a little bit more. I just don't want to just put an app that everybody uses, because I don't trust it to be secure, and that bothers me a little.
And totally understand. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't a funding issue. I mean, like, is there anything that we can do?
Yes, it is. We would love.
Well, I mean, you got to.
No, it's not a funding issue.
It's not a funding issue,
No,
okay.
but thank you for asking.
All right.
I don't want to, go ahead and ask the rest of your questions, I'm sorry. Then I want to talk a little bit. Because I can do that. Okay, so one of the things we're going to do, we are meeting Monday and talking more about the pretrial, because while I was in DC and he was in, not Seattle, San Diego. We learned a lot, and one of the things I went to was I focused on confinement to community. I really wanted to focus on what we're trying to do with the jail recidivism and moving them out and making sure that they don't return and doing those kind of things. So I really focused in that area and met with a really good program in Arizona and a very good program in Minnesota, which I will go and visit, and take Andrew for one and Michelle for the other. But the other thing I really did some learning and research on is that bonds, money bonds do not make a difference if they're going to report or not. It doesn't matter if someone pays $1,000 to get out or gets out free. It impacts them in no way. And if you go and you look at, I can't remember the number, 35 of these clients have been assessed, do meet the pretrial requirements, but they have a bond amount, dollar, cash, something they have to give, and they don't have that. So they're sitting over there, even though they're appropriate for our program. And the research I've done and the training I've now done and everything tells me that there's no reason for them to be sitting there. But the judges gave them that bond, and they have the right to do that. So one of the things, we're going to do after we meet is set up a meeting with the judges. I want to take a cross-section of that population and see if I can get them to release them on OR bonds, no money, and see if those people make a difference as opposed to the ones that are on some kind of cash bond. All the research is supporting us to do that, but until you do your own little project and dig down and literally do some research yourself locally, you won't know. So that is something we are going to do in the near future. It bothers me that 35 of those clients are meeting pretrial, and they're still sitting in jail. And that's bothersome, as are the 31, they get revoked because they don't report for court. So the talk to text, or whatever that is, text to talk, and the, looking at those 31s, and I think we need to go back and delve into each one of those and find out, why didn't you report? You know, what could we have done differently, or what services are we missing, or what is it that you need to do? Because we talked about one time taking a van and going around picking them all up. If it's transportation, whatever it is, they're just not, what we've learned in 30-some years of business is that clients aren't good communicators. They don't tell you. It's easier for them just to block that day off. So those are some things we want to do, because we do want to, even though we do believe our program is very strong and very supportive, as we've learned across the United States, we want to do that. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at with pretrial. Still some work with the confinement to community. I'm really excited about some of that work. I met with a program in Minnesota that, and I'm not thrilled about traveling to Minnesota, but I will, that are looking at the same thing we are and trying to reduce their jail population, bring them out into the community, but keeping them in the community. And what are they doing? So they're delving and looking at every client that comes out and looking at all their history, everything. It's a big project, but it's going to be published nationwide. There were 10 or 12 states that were picked with Arnold Ventures, and I think that'll be great data, but I want to stay with them and follow that so I can see what their states are, you know, what their information's saying. So we're working hard on this, and we really have an investment. Our community corrections is doing that. So I'll step up the IT piece and hopefully work on some of these.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work and comments.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's approved agenda items. Is there any other business or announcements that anyone has?
I have an announcement. Today is National Voter Registration Day, so you can go online and check your registration, make sure it's up to date at voteks.org. You can also find where your polling location is, and we have the sample ballots out there, so if you want to look at your ballot for the November 5th election, they're there.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Hopefully more people will register and get out to vote. So at this time, I would take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
When moved and seconded that we adjourn today's meeting, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. We will have a second meeting followed and after a very short break.
No, I didn't.